Trading Casey Middlestadt would suggest the Bruins don't intend to be competitive this season, and that is not the message that you want to send.
You're Locked On Bruins, your daily podcast on the Boston Bruins, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Bruins fans, and welcome back to the Locked On Boston Bruins podcast. I'm your host, Ian McLaren, and this is a daily show where we discuss all things Spoked B. Today is Tuesday, August 12th. Thank you so much for making Locked On Boston Bruins your first listen every day. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. Today we're going to hit on a trio of topics, beginning with recent rumblings that Casey Middlestadt is on the trade block and could be moved prior to the start of the regular season. It's my contention that that would be a bad idea. It would signal the Bruins don't intend to be competitive this season. Not the kind of message that you want to be sending. Also going to touch on Hampus Lindholm being fully recovered in time for training camp and his goals for this upcoming season, as well as the off-season fantasy views from Dobber Hockey. Before we get into all that, a quick reminder, you can find the podcast on social media at Locked NHL Bruins. You can find me, my hockey thoughts, dad jokes at Ian C. McLaren. I'm a lifelong Boston Bruins fan, and I've been covering this team for various outlets for 20 years. Now, there, of course, was no podcast yesterday as I was in Toronto with my wife, Lauren. We're getting ready to celebrate our wedding anniversary. Well, this was the celebration for our wedding anniversary, which comes up later this week. We went to Toronto, stayed at our favorite spot, went to a rooftop patio, then checked out Goo Goo Dolls and Dashboard Confessional at Toronto's Budweiser Stage, which is an outdoor venue right by Lake Ontario. So fun, so great to be able to sing some of these songs. And that's why my voice is still a little strained, especially after going to see the Fray last week as well. Anyways, we're back and we're discussing, to start, Casey Middlestadt. And I say it over and over, consider the source. Don't read too much into reports that come from not like maybe secondary level insiders or guys outside of like Elliot Friedman, Frank Saravelli, etc. But there has been increasing noise that Casey Middlestadt, along with Pavel Zacha and Eunice Korpisalo, are not on the trade block, but seemingly in the rumor mill at least. Their names are out there. For me, though, moving Middlestadt before the season even starts would be a bad idea for the Boston Bruins. And here's why. So this is from Jimmy Murphy, rg.org is his current website. And he posits that Middlestadt, according to an NHL exec who spoke with Murphy RG, there's been buzz about Middlestadt being on the move since before last season even ended. And the idea is that when the Bruins got him from Colorado at the deadline, along with Will Zellers and a second-round pick for Charlie Coyle, like, what a package. Come on. I get you can go at Sweeney for a lot of things, but this trade, Charlie Coyle for Middlestadt, Zellers, and a second-round pick, that's pretty good. Anyways, it suggests that Middlestadt wasn't actually the main target. Zellers and the pick were, which is fine. The Avs had to trade some cap in order to make room, and the Bruins just so happened to get the 8th overall pick from 2017 as an add-on. This exec says Boston's Amateur scouts were hell-bent on Zellers for good reason. We've talked about his upside previously, and they were really intent on restocking picks and prospects. Mittelstadt was part of the package in order to make the money work. And look, I get the speculation. He's only been a Bruin for 18 games. He put up a pretty paltry 4 goals and 2 assists after coming over from Colorado. Not earth-shattering production, not even top 6 production, especially for a guy making $5.7 million for the next 2 seasons. But here's the thing, a couple things. Selling right now is basically selling pretty low. 34 points in 63 games with the Avs before the trade. He came over at the deadline. It's an adjustment for any player, adjusting to the system, new line mates, new role, new city, new locker room dynamics. If you flip him now, you're not getting anywhere near full value for a guy who was drafted 8th overall in 2017. Maybe another mid-round pick, mid-tier prospect. That doesn't help you in October when you're seemingly trying to be competitive again. This is a guy with 81 career goals, 236 points in 438 games. Again, not life-changing production. Similar kind of profile maybe as Pavel Zacha. Maybe a bit less physical, but he's got size, skill, playmaking ability. He can play center or wing, which gives you lineup flexibility. And most importantly, his forward depth, or Boston's forward depth, isn't exactly overflowing with proven middle 6 producers right now. If you give him time, like half a season at least, maybe he clicks with Zacha, Arvidsson. Maybe he drives a secondary scoring line and pushes for 50 points. Then you've got a more legitimate trade chip at the deadline if you decide to move him, because teams will be more inclined perhaps to grab a guy who's got 2 playoff runs in him as opposed to a pure rental. Or you say, this guy fits in pretty well with what we're trying to build here. And even if he was just a throw-in, we scored pretty well to get 3 pieces out of this trade, including our second line center. And even with the down season he had in 2024-25, 15 goals, 25 assists, 40 total points. He's coming off seasons in which he's recorded 57 and 59 points, respectively. Over the past 3 years on average, 16 goals, 36 assists for 52 points, 0.64 points per game. That's a 53-point pace. You put that on the Bruins last season, he's your 3rd leading scorer behind David Pastrnak and Morgan Geekie. And that's the kind of production you need on the second line. Say you have Pastrnak, Geekie with Lindholm squeezed in at the top line. Mittelstadt could fill that second line role alongside Zacha and Arvidsson. That's the goal anyways. Trading him right now would suggest we don't want to be necessarily competitive this season. We're kind of having another transition year, maybe low-key putting ourselves in position to draft a Gavin McKenna. Keeping him would signal that you're intent on putting at least a competitive lineup out there, trying to make the most of what you have instead of preemptively selling pieces to continue to restock for the future. You need guys who can play right now. And I don't know if there's anybody else who can step in and play that role at this moment. You could suggest maybe Matt Patra, Fraser Minton, but Middlestadt is a bona fide NHLer. He was drafted 8th overall for a reason, and trading him before the season even starts would be not putting your most competitive roster forward, and also a kind of mismanagement of assets, because maybe holding on to him until the deadline when he's had a chance to rebuild his profile would be the better play. So if you're going to trade him, at least wait till he gets his value back up a little bit and then see what you can get prior to the trade deadline. Look at what the Bruins got: Minton and a first for Brandon Carlo at this year's trade deadline because he had some control as well. Mittelstadt could potentially fetch you the same, provided he does indeed pop out of training camp and produce a bit once the regular season begins. So I'm fully on board with keeping Casey Middlestadt for the time being. Korpisalo, if you can trade him, sure. Zacha is apparently also out there. Zacha's agent, brushing it off with lots of rumors, comment, and Korpisalo's flat out denied he's asked for a trade. Right now, it's just chatter. The bigger point, you can't start shipping out useful players for future assets if your goal is to rebound from last year's last place finish. Maybe Middlestadt wasn't the crown jewel of the Colorado deal. Zellers was the guy they really wanted. You wanted the pick. But if you move him now before he's had a chance to settle in, you're basically throwing away a chance to increase his value and potentially boost your own scoring depth. All right, so that's my take on Middlestadt. Coming up, we're going to discuss Hampus Lindholm's full strength return and how it could be huge for the Bruins as one of their biggest offseason additions. All right, let's say you realize you need to hire someone yesterday for your business. How can you find amazing candidates fast? It's easy. Just use Indeed. When it comes to hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other sites. Indeed's sponsored jobs put your posts at the top of the page and help you reach the right candidates faster. I've been in that spot where the company I worked for needed the right hire, like yesterday. The pressure's on. Every day without the right person is a setback. And that's exactly when Indeed's sponsored jobs came in handy, made sure the post was seen by the right candidates right away. Speed up your hiring process with a $75 sponsored job credit. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon right now and support the show by saying you heard about Indeed on Locked On Boston Bruins. Terms and conditions apply, but if you're hiring, Indeed is all you need. All right, let's discuss Hampus Lindholm, his return to the lineup. There are a bunch of new faces coming into the Bruins lineup this season, and perhaps even some more moves to be made. Mittelstadt moved out, Zacha. But one of the most important additions for this upcoming season is not a new signing or a trade. It's the return of Hampus Lindholm, who is 100% healthy for training camp, which will open mid-September. Remember, last year was a nightmare for Lindholm. Just less than 20 games after taking a fractured kneecap in November. Up to that point, he had posted 3 goals, 4 assists, logging around 21 minutes a night. He was arguably Boston's best player to begin the season. He was moving the puck well. He was looking so strong defensively, and then boom, season's basically done. And it wasn't just the loss of a veteran presence. It was losing one of Boston's most reliable all-situation defenders. He was killing penalties, playing strong 5-on-5 minutes, and there was even talk of him manning the first power play unit, quarterbacking it, with Charlie McAvoy not quite succeeding in that role and with the power play sputtering to begin the season. Without him, the left side was just a carousel of young players, depth guys trying to fill the void. Mason Lohrei somewhat admirably came in and posted offensive numbers, really struggled defensively with the league's worst plus minus. So Lindholm coming back, as well as McAvoy coming back. He was, of course, injured at the Four Nations face-off. That's going to be huge for the Bruins. This weekend, Boston Globe's Kevin Paul Dupont had what he called an enjoyable phone chat with Lindholm. And the biggest takeaway was the kneecap is fully healed. Hampus says he's 100% for the start of camp. And he's even got his eye on representing Sweden at the 2026 Winter Games in Milan Cortina with the Three Crowns, Tre Kronor. Elias Lindholm had a very strong world championship with Sweden, and that really hopefully boosted his confidence. The motivation for Hampus to make that team will be very present, and he's going to want to come out and put his best skate forward, best stick forward in order to go over to Milan and represent your country because, it's not just about being ready for camp. This is a season in which players are thinking long-term and wanting to be part of the first best on best at the Olympics since, 2014 in Sochi. Let's not forget how important this guy was when he first got here in 2022. 53 points in 80 games in his first full season. Again, that would have put him third on the Bruins in total points last year. Over 23 minutes a night, one of the league's best plus-minus ratings. If you care about that stat, he skates well, moves the puck cleanly, can kill penalties, run a power play, match up against top lines. He's either the perfect partner for Charlie McAvoy or the perfect anchor for the second pairing because it gives the Bruins two excellent defenders to build around in the top four. Put them together, true top pairing that can control play in all three zones. And now when he comes back, the left side suddenly looks a lot stronger. You've got Mason Lohrei fresh off his 33-point breakout in his first full season with less defensive responsibility to carry. Of course, as a defenseman, you have to be responsible any given shift, but he will not be going up necessarily against the Connor McDavids and Sidney Crosbys of the world. Maybe more, your Trent Fredericks when he's coming in with the Edmonton Oilers. So he's got room to grow, still can blossom offensively, and should thrive under Marco Sturm's, guidance and deployment. Nikita Zadorov brings size, shutdown ability. With Marco Sturm behind the bench, there's going to be a renewed emphasis on structure, support from the blue line. Zadorov, with Tanner Jeannot being brought in, will have less agitator or enforcer responsibilities. And Lindholm's presence will allow those other guys to slot into roles that fit them better. Lohrei won't have to carry 20 minutes a night in only his second full NHL season. Zadorov can focus on matchups, hits, instead of puck movement and offense and also fighting. That balance was missing last year. So yeah, when people talk about what the Bruins did this offseason, don't overlook a fully healthy Hampus Lindholm. That could be one of the biggest reasons the blue line rebounds in 2025-26. Perhaps a reason why Jeremy Swayman refines his game. If Lindholm picks up anywhere close to where he left off before that injury, it's going to go a long way towards helping Jeremy Swayman get back to his, not even necessarily his career averages, but helping him get to a .900 save percentage and help push this team back into playoff contention. So for me, a healthy Lindholm and Casey Middlestadt as your potential second line center, that's a huge boost for the Bruins. And if they are serious about turning things around quickly and getting back into the playoff mix, they're going to need both of those guys to really pop this season. And when it comes to the Middlestadt, everydayers will remember, I've said it before, I don't think it's a mistake that they featured him in their Bear Tracks segment earlier this offseason, whether it was to try to attract Brock Besser or a signal that he's a guy they like and want to keep, similar to Pavel Zacha being featured in the away jersey video reveal. I don't think those are mistakes. And speaking of the Bruins social, before we continue, got to give a shout out to Elaine Cavalieri, who had announced her departure from the Bruins yesterday after 4 years on the digital content team. If you follow the Bruins on TikTok, Instagram, X, you would have seen her magic on full display over the last several years. The Bruins and their fans are really going to miss her social media presence, reporting presence. She wrote some game recaps as well. Very talented, and we wish her the best. She's going to be missed, and congrats on a fantastic tenure with the Boston Bruins. All right, so we've talked about Lindholm, Mittelstadt. Let's finish with bigger picture. The Bruins offseason changes are in the books. On paper, they didn't exactly supercharge the roster with talent. And we'll take a look at what Dobber Hockey has to say about their fantasy hockey prospects here coming up as the podcast continues. Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, property, investments. When you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. And that's where Monarch Money comes in. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. Monarch makes it simple to review my finances with my partner. We can both set budgets, goals, spending activity in one place. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONNHL. Everydayers will know that I'm a pretty big fantasy hockey guy. I have a keeper salary cap league that I spend pretty much every day of the year looking at. Yes, including Christmas. I got an offer for a trade on Christmas morning this past year. And it's something that I want to incorporate more into the podcast, just some fantasy hockey talk, whether it be tips for people you should pick up or sleepers on the Bruins, guys who could have better or worse seasons than anticipated. Yes, Locked On has the Locked On Fantasy Hockey podcast with Steele and Flip. You should all be checking that out. But I'm going to sprinkle in some of that content here and there. Dobber Hockey had their fantasy hockey grades for the Bruins offseason. And, they recapped. Gone are guys like Cole Koepke, Vinny Lettieri, Jacob Lauko, Ian Mitchell, Oliver Wahlstrom, Brendan Bussey, plus Joe Sacco. Coming in, Victor Arvidsson, Tanner Jeannot, Mikey Esimont, Sean Corrali, Jordan Harris on the blue line, as well as Victor Soderstrom, Matej Blumel, Alex Steeves, and of course, new head coach Marco Sturm. From a pure talent standpoint, not a massive upgrade, if at all. Fantasy-wise, you're not going to be rushing to draft any of these new guys outside of deep leagues. Again, in my salary cap league, would a guy like Esimont perhaps intrigue me, or Blumel, maybe even Soderstrom, who are on cheap deals with potential upside? Yes. At the end of the day, the Bruins seem to want to be harder to play against. And that was their big goal in this offseason, as it was last offseason, saying we're built for the playoffs. They didn't even come close to that. Anyways, the biggest star that they added was Victor Arvidsson. In his prime, a relentless motor, volume shooter. Jeannot, a hits machine. So if you're in a league that counts hits, he's a guy you might want to target, seeing as he does have a 20-goal season on his record. He could perhaps bring some more offensive upside. Both, though, have seen their scoring dip. Both have had injury issues. If they rebound, great, but that's a big if. Arvidsson could be a bit of a sleeper if he, Mittelstadt, and Zacha do find some chemistry. Bigger boost, again, might not be any of these signings. It's the return of Lindholm and Charlie McAvoy. McAvoy missed 32 games, Lindholm 65. Having them back gives Jeremy Swayman more defensive support, cleaner breakouts, and frankly, a fighting chance in net. Some bubble guys to watch. Blumel led the AHL in goals last year with 39 for Texas. 25 on a one-year deal. Could sneak into the bottom six if he has a big camp. There's, of course, Georgi Merkulov, who led Providence in scoring, is not waivers exempt anymore, and that could force the Bruins' hand. Not necessarily the physical type they want in the bottom six, but you risk losing him for nothing on waivers if you want to try to send him down to Providence at the end of training camp. Fabian Lysell, 2021 first rounder, probably isn't making the roster unless he blows people away. He is waivers exempt, can be sent back to Providence. If he doesn't crack the roster, though, I don't know what his long-term future is. So Blumel, Merkulov, Lysell are three guys to watch in camp to see if they can crack. If so, maybe they can provide some value. I've got Lysell on my keeper team, still on his cheap deal, so if we can get some goals out of him, that would be great. Dobber has the Bruins fantasy grade at C, which was down from a B- to begin last summer. That's only high because Pastrnak is still here. Clear 100-point guy. But the days of him playing with Bergeron, Marchand are long gone. It's Morgan Geekie now. Elias Lindholm, maybe Pavel Zacha. Good players, but not in the same league as the perfection line. Geekie had that career year with 33 goals and 57 points. I traded Spencer Knight for him, hoping that he, while not likely to shoot nearly 22%, can still put up some good numbers alongside Pastrnak. I also traded Matty Beniers for Jeremy Swayman, who's still one of the better goalies skill-wise. Struggled without Ullmark sharing the load, without a stacked roster in front of him. He's going to have to steal some games just to keep Boston in the hunt. But with Lindholm McAvoy back and with him having a full regular offseason with no contract distractions, training camp, exhibition schedule, that should help him as well. So hopefully it's a balancing. So not a wow offseason for Boston by any means. It's more about adding grit, betting on bounce backs, hoping your two best defensemen can stay healthy. Whether that's enough to push them back into playoff contention, that's a big question. But if you look at the offseason signings as well, you still have to add to that Casey Middlestadt, who was acquired at the trade deadline. Marat Hust-Nudinov, who could put up some numbers. Fraser Minton. These are guys who all kind of refilled the prospects or the talent pool for the Boston Bruins. So that's it for today's episode. Don't trade Middlestadt. Welcome back, Hampus Lindholm. Bruins are betting on some bounce backs from their defensemen, from Middlestadt, or jump ups for some younger guys. And later on this offseason, we'll take another look at the projected opening night lineup where some question marks still remain. But to sum things up, don't trade Middlestadt yet. Get excited about a healthy Lindholm. Maybe temper expectations for this roster as a whole if anybody has big expectations. There's potential here for a wild card push if health holds and a few bounce back happens, especially Swayman. But right now, the biggest win of the summer, the biggest addition is Lindholm, not necessarily of the external variety. All right, that's it for today's episode, my friends. Thank you so much for joining me here on the Locked On Boston Bruins podcast. A couple more episodes coming up this week, including hopefully a guest on Friday to talk about an exciting upcoming book. So look forward to all that. Please do subscribe on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. For your second listen, check out the Locked On NHL podcast, league-wide stories from our local experts. And also, please do take care of yourselves, take care of each other. Stay cool out there. It's blasted hot up here in Canada, Southern Ontario, wildfire warnings, super dry up here. So stay hydrated and stay safe. And we'll talk to you here on the next episode of Locked On Boston Bruins.